Keebly is so annoying. I love him. Hello everybody, and welcome to my review of Book 15. It took me a bit to get through this since I've been pretty crazy busy, and I finally got it read though, so here's my thoughts. Warning, this video will have spoilers for Book 15, The Flames of Hope. Turn back now if you haven't read it yet. So, overall, I think Book 15 was weird. Like, it was all over the place, and sometimes my brain just hurt thinking about everything going on. But also, I feel like Tui really tied it all together pretty nicely. For a book that had so many divergent plot lines running in tandem, she did a really good job keeping tabs on all of them, and let me tell you, that's not an easy thing to do. I think in the end, I'm fairly neutral about the book. I don't think it's one of her best books, but it's not bad, and I did enjoy reading it. One thing I was disappointed about was the ultimate payoff at the end. This book seemed very anticlimactic. I mean, the first several books in this arc established that the stakes were high and we were in real trouble now. And then in like 3 pages, Luna found out how to destroy the hive mind permanently. And like, yeah, I get it. Tui was kind of backed into a corner here. Whatever solution played out, she still had to come up with it. I can't say I wouldn't have gone the same route here too. But the whole book seemed to be a series of almosts. Sundew was almost lured in. Their invisibility bracelets were almost useful. Keebly and Tsunami were almost infected, etc., etc., etc. So it seemed like kind of empty when these threats would pop up, kind of like, you know, when a character dies in comics. It's worrying, but like, we know the threat's not going to be realized. It seems like the Other Mind, this massive, incredible threat, was quashed relatively easily, with almost nothing lost. And I mean, yeah, there were losses, but not really enough to match the stakes that were set up for this book. That being said, another thing I noticed that kind of threw me off was the wonky pacing on this book. Much like Book 14, this book had a lot of flashbacks. Minus the flashbacks, the story itself was pretty short. However, I'm divided on this because, well, the constant jumping around did kind of confuse me. It, you know, you have adrenaline running, you have like this really great pacing going, and then you like stop to have this flashback that's different from the pacing and the tone of the rest of the book, and it kind of dispels that energy you have building up. But, you know, I really like the lore. I am a huge sucker for backstory. Sue me, okay? And I absolutely thrived on the flashbacks in this book. Do you have any idea how long I've been waiting for Scorching lore? Any clue? Since like book 1. Since book 1, I've been waiting to know what went on in the Scorching. It's been slowly building. I've wanted to know for ages. And now I know, and I'm so happy. Like, do you have any idea how long? Not to mention the bit with Keebly and adorable baby Winter and all the bits about Slopewing culture prior to the events of Arc 3. Not to mention a serious blast to the past with Tsunami's memory. Way to tie Book 15 back all the way to Book 1. Speaking of Keebly, my little disaster child, my buddy, my main man. What a disaster. I love him. I did not realize how much I missed having this monster around. He's so funny and constantly snarky, but also whip smart, and gosh, I love him. Tsunami's line about the not sassing the enemy class and his immediately failure thereof, it had me. I mean, Keebly's lines stood out for me in this book, and yes, I'm obviously biased, but it was awesome to see him again, and it makes me want to reread Book 10 and kind of like all of the second arc, so if that was her intent, she definitely accomplished it. On the subject of old characters, though, I do have a minor nitpick about one of the 10 chosen dragons. Just Bullfrog. Why? I mean, this guy had zero personality. Like none. Like the off-brand dollar store version of Clay with more brawn and shocking levels of nothingness to his character. Little harsh, I know, but hear me out. The Mudwing position was a perfect opportunity to bring back a certain Mudwing we've all been missing. Yes, Umber. Umber is a fan favorite character, one who's been missing since early in Arc 2, and this would have been a perfect chance to insert him and work on his story some. And even if it's not a perfect fit, literally anyone other than Bullfrog would have been perfect. His character could have been scrapped and replaced with Umber or even Sora, which would have helped draw people in and endear the chosen prophecy dragons to them a little bit more. That would have helped this narrative out. Another thing that position could have done was to give us some insight into Mudwing culture, because of all the tribes, we know the least about Mudwings. I mean, the only Mudwing book we had maybe, 3 chapters in the Mud Kingdom? We don't know anything about them, and this could have been a great chance to explore a fairly unexplored tribe, and I feel like she really kind of missed out on that. And sure, maybe this book might not have been the right place to do it, but that doesn't mean that something couldn't have slid in. Another nitpick I have when it comes to characterization and characters chosen is Sky. I get why he was included, I do, but I kind of hate how Tui writes him. Sure, it was cute in Dragon Slayer, the infantile actions and the adorable behavior, and it really is. I like Sky in that book, but when I start to think about it, like Sky in this book, it really bothers me. He's as old as Peril, for heaven's sakes, which puts him at least as old or older than several other characters, including Tsunami, let's not forget. And while the way in which he's written was fine for the narrative tone in Dragon Slayer, it seemed more than a little out of place in a book like this, and it didn't really play well with the other dragons. It's cute in the side book, but now it seems to almost slow the plot. The mood of the book was mostly tense, but I don't know how to express it. It was hard to keep it tense, shot through with happy memories and whatnot. It just seemed to jump back and forth a lot, which really kind of threw me off. What tone is she going for? Are we dark and grim, or are we, happy memories and stuff? Which is fine, I do like the lore, it threw me off a little. It just really seemed to jump back and forth a lot, which in turn kind of downplayed the actual threat by having it go back and forth so much. That being said, and I know I have a lot of contrasting opinions on this, I do think Tui did an amazing job wrapping up. Despite my issues with the pacing of the book overall, it's not a bad story. Not the best, but certainly not her worst either. One thing I adored was, Dusky. What a cute character to throw in. We've gotten so many dragonettes in this arc, it's the best. He was so small and precious, and I'm so glad they ended up finding his mother in the end. Oh, that made me so happy. Lizard/Freedom was a little much. Not sure how I feel about her. I do feel sorry for her for sure. She had an interesting narrative point. The whole, my life was the worst, so you have to feel bad for me, and anything I do is excused because of, all the other bad things that have happened to me. Which is a feeling that I feel like is growing more and more prevalent in some people and in some narratives, and I like that Tui addressed it and was like, yes, Lizard/Freedom, your life sucked, but also, that doesn't excuse, things that you've done or let Cottonmouth get away with. Speaking of him, Cottonmouth sucks. Just gonna leave it at that. He sucks. Anyways, Freedom was definitely a really cool bit of information about the older dragon tribes, since we've already gotten confirmation that the tribes we have currently are relatively newer types of dragons. And okay, I know I keep harping on the lore, but as much as it fiddled with the pacing, I adored it. And also those cave drawings, those were so creepy and cool. I got literal chills reading that scene. It was so cool. It was also a really good exploration into how, depending on who tells the history, who tells the story, the history of it's going to change. Because we've had the dragons version of it, we've had the humans version of it, and then we got to see what really happened. And so it was a really, really good reminder that history is often told, it is often told skewed to the perspective of who's telling it. So, the humans had it in their favor, and the dragons had it in their favor, and in reality, it was a little bit of both. So it was a nice thing to put in there. I really like that. I know this is kind of all over the place. It's not my best review ever, but in my defense, it is kind of hard to pick apart my feelings on this book because this book is it's like trail mix. It's like a little bit of everything, which is a terrible, terrible metaphor. It's the first thing I could think of. It was not a great metaphor. Anyways, the book was wonky, but overall, I think it was good. Anyways, what are your thoughts on book 15? Did it seem a little weird to you as well, or is it just me? What are your thoughts on Luna's characterization and her attitude towards her own struggles, such as her mental health? Be sure to check out the links in the description if you'd like to support me or see more of my art. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more like it, and drop a like and a comment if you'd like to make my day. Thank you so much for watching, and please have a wonderful week.